so much, guys. Rest in peace, for loving us. At this time, I would like to turn the service over to the family. If there's anyone that wishes to come up and speak and say a couple words of reference in regards to the election, you may do so.
Okay.
Guess that's me. So, you'll have to excuse me if I get a little emotional. Try not to, but. So I discussed it with Sandy, and they'll provide the minister if you want to come and speak. But we thought, what's the point in having a minister come and talk about Mom that they never knew her? So we didn't see any point to that. And I haven't been to a lot of funerals in my life. I've only been to 3 that I can recall. Grandma's funeral, Grandma Margaret, Sandy was there, John was there. We was at a couple other funerals at memorial services when I was up in Oregon. So, what I'd like to do is I'm going to share some of. We have, I guess we have about 20, 25 minutes, 5, 10, 15, about 35 after, so I'll be brief. I wanted to share some of my memories of Mom, and then we'll have, for sure, Sandy and John come up and share some of their memories of their Mom, and anybody else that wants to. And, about, you've all heard the story about the blind man and the elephant, where the blind man feels that one feels the trunk and one feels the leg, and says that the different parts of the elephant, and all of the elephant looks different. The one that says that who feels the leg says it feels like a pillar, and the one who feels the tail says the elephant feels like a rope, and the one who feels the trunk says the elephant is like a tree branch. So I think that we all have our own perspective and our own experience of Mom, so we all saw her a little bit different. I think it's like that. It's not that the point of the story is that all of you are right. The reason everyone is telling it differently is because each one of you touched a different part of the elephant. So actually the elephant has all the features you mentioned. So I think that's kind of what I hope we're going to do. And Mom didn't have a real good childhood, and I'm hoping too that someday, when Jimmy has kids and Melissa has kids and Amber has kids, they'll wonder about their great grandma and what she was like. So I'm going to film it, and maybe they'll get a little bit of sense of what she was like too from us. Mom didn't have a good childhood, and she was kind of, when I talked to her about her childhood, she just said, she was shipped from one relative to another relative, and maybe Sandy might have more insight about that. And I remember Dad telling me that too when I was growing up, that Mom didn't have a very good childhood. So, but Mom was there for me, and I can remember times, when I was 10, 12 years old, and I'd have my paper out, and sometimes it rained in Southern California, and you get the heavy downpour in the morning, and you really can't, you got to deliver your papers, you can't get on your bike and go out and pedal in the rain. So I'd go in and wake up Mom and say, Mom, would you please take me out and help me deliver my paperwork? Sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning. And she would get up and she would take me out, and that happened on many occasions. And she was there for other times in my life for me too. I remember in the late 1980s, I sold real estate. Jim or Sandy will tell you sometimes it's a long time in between escrows that you can have a hard time. So when I needed money to help me out in between escrow, she was there for me. And she wasn't just there for me too. I know Helen, her late great grandma, was they called Mom, I don't know, sometime about 1972, when she was in a convalescent hospital, and that's Mom's mom, and they weren't treating her well in the convalescent hospital. And Mom was there for her. She went back east, got her, brought her back out here to live with us at Mom and Dad's house and take care of her. So anybody that knows Mom, she had, like Sandy, she had a love of animals. You know, you remember her cats, Peter and Harriet, that she loved. And Iodine, I think Iodine was an abused dog, and that Sandy rescued and brought her over to Mom. And I talked to Stacy Wegener yesterday, and Mom was not a social butterfly. You know, her life was her family. Her life was Dad, and her life was us. And so she didn't have a lot of friends, but Eileen was her friend, and Eileen would be here if she could, but Eileen's 88 years old too, and she's frail, and it's a long trip for her to come out here. So, but I did speak to Stacy, and she wished us well. She's a nice lady. Mom was a very hard worker. After she raised us kids, she went to work for Inglewood Unified School District, and she excelled at her job and had A1 performance reviews, and rose to the top of the personnel department there at the Inglewood School District. So family was everything to Mom, I believe. And so in these last 7 years, when I came down from Oregon, I took care of Mom, and so I was around her a lot, and she became my best friend, and so I'll miss her. I wish we would have had her longer, but we didn't. I guess we kind of all knew this was coming one of these days, so it's here now. And I think there's some lessons from Mom's life too. I know when Dad was dying, I went up to Victorville, and her friend Merle that lived next door was a Christian lady, and I was speaking to Merle, and I didn't know much about Mom's faith. This was a memorial service, so we did a little religious ceremony, and and she told me that Mom believed, and that was the first news that I ever really heard about it. And we didn't talk about that a lot, but she did have faith. One time that movie, Mel Gibson's movie, The Passion of the Christ, I wanted to see it, and I got the DVD at home, and I put it in there, and Mom said, no, don't play that. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see what they did to me. So she had real faith, and she believed in God's forgiveness, and she believed in through Jesus Christ. She did believe that. And she believed in forgiving others. I don't think it's a big family secret that I had a kind of misspent youth, and did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done. And Mom forgave me for that. And so I think those are important lessons. To me, I'm religious now, or spiritual, but I wasn't always. To me, that's what life is about. Life is about receiving forgiveness from God and forgiving others. And I think that's an important lesson that we can all learn, wherever you're at on your journey. And she wasn't afraid to die. And I love Mom.
Saying that God was not a social butterfly is one of the world's great understatements. Excuse me. She would have been just as happy if these were the only people he ever knew. Anyway, if she were here right now, she would be giving me hell. Mom had a problem with money. When she was a little kid, she was transferred back and forth from one member of the family to the other, and she was told it was because none of them could afford to keep her. So she was very, very tight. So the $200 for the flowers would have been something she would not have approved of. I did it anyway. And it's not the first time that I did something she didn't want me to do. But it will be the last. Again, she was the quintessential 50s housewife and mother. If you watched Ozzie and Harriet, that was my mother. My dad was not so much Ozzie. Ozzie didn't work. My dad worked 15 hours a day. So, but mother was, everything was about us. It was everything she did. She did what she thought needed to be done, whether we wanted her to or not. Ted talks about her getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning for her paper route. This was not a stretch for her. She was up by 5 o'clock every morning anyway to make breakfast for a whole bunch of people who didn't eat it. I quit eating breakfast when I was 8 years old. She cooked breakfast every single morning for me until the day I left that house, because that's what she did. Unfortunately, her whole, well, not unfortunately, but her whole life was about taking care of other people. And then once she didn't have other people to take care of, she was kind of sad and lost. So the last 8 years or so, she wasn't really the person that we knew and grew up with. She didn't have anybody to take care of. She'd kind of lost her purpose. So if we all have a lesson from that, is whatever life you have, keep living it. Live now, live in the moment. Don't just give up because what you did before is no longer there. Okay, some of you are not going to know what these pictures are, so I'm going to tell you. This is my mother, and that was her father, who she never had a kind word to say of. Not one, ever. Those, what do we have? Here, we have my bad vision. I believe that's Mom and Dad and Belinda. Is that you? Okay, not a great picture. Oh, that's one of Mom and Dad's trips with one of the dogs. We know these people. That's Mom. She would have been about 35 there. I can't see what we have here. Mom would be, this is Mom and me and a very small Colin. So she would have been 60, thereabout. And I messed that up. All right, that goes home with me. All right, that's her high school graduation picture. That's the other half of the high school graduation picture. It's hard to remember her as ever being that pretty, but she was. Well, I don't look like I did when I was 17 either. In my case, it's just as good a thing. All right, this is my mother, her father, and my grandma Emily, who is the person who raised her for the most part, and that was her stepmother. Let's see. Other ones you don't know who they are. I think that's my mom and dad. And this is probably like that is what most of us would remember her like. Anyway, so that's it, and it's John's turn.
She took all my thunder. I point out that is my mother. 1937?
Apparently, we inherited Dad's looks.
Well, for many of you young ladies to look at a young girl like that. You see yourself? Very pretty. I bet you didn't know that my dad was actually Radar O'Reilly. I don't know what to say about my mom. I loved her so much. She was kind, and gentle, true. She was there. But I know she can't. So, take a look at these pictures. I see her as a young girl. Not as an old woman. That's me. And my mom. That's the way I remember. So,
But,
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Anybody who can?
DJ.
Most of the memories I have of her, obviously, are of a victim. We would go up there for the weekend, and obviously, looking back now, you always wish you had more time to know someone. But the memories I do have, I cherish, even as a young child. I remember her as just as what you guys are saying, just kind and gentle person. I think she's probably the one person in the world I probably have nothing bad to say about. Sorry, everyone.
Typical Wegener.
Like I said, I wish there was so much more time we had, but she was a loving woman, and I'll miss her dearly.
I don't know if any of you guys have noticed. In my garage, there's an old tin bucket that's got a candle in it. It's an old, nasty looking thing. And it's been burning a candle in there. So, 11.5 years ago, that candle has always been burning. Now the grandma's gone too. When I light that candle, I know it's gonna burn a little brighter. I love you, Papa.
So we only, that's it. So everybody's going over to the restaurant, I think, afterwards, and so we can continue on over there. And,
is everybody going? Because I've got a billboard here that I'd like everybody to sign, almost like a login.
yeah, I think everybody, everybody, raise your hand if you're not going. Everybody's going. So, all right. Bye, Mom. We miss you and we love you.